having them post 3 times about your product is not gonna, I don't care who they are, is not gonna get, 9 out of 10 times is not gonna be ROI positive. It's like leveraging it from top to bottom and using all their mediums is how you truly unlock the value. You integrate them into the brand, you will get ROI, because people buy from people and not brands, period. In the story.
That's right.
Welcome to the Love Your Brand podcast. If you're looking for real conversations with real people, you're the right place. Let's go!
All right.
What's up, everybody?
What's up? Welcome to the Love Your Brand podcast. Today we've got Mr. Ryan Alford, hailing from Greenville, South Carolina. We call it Cackalack here in the Carolinas. Husband, father, serial entrepreneur, influencer, coach, and speaker, and the host of the Radcast, the #1 marketing and business podcast on Apple. From humble beginnings to radical rock star, we are very blessed to have you on the show today, Ryan. Welcome.
What's up?
What's
Happy to be here.
Good to have you, Ryan. Hey, this is a big day. Big
Hey,
game tonight,
Carolina
right?
boys. I'm all about, the Carolina crew. We gotta stand tall, stand strong.
That's true. Jason said Greenville, but I kind of say Greenville. Are you a Greenville or a Vol?
Greenville, Green G Vegas.
G Vegas, there it is.
That's what I call it G Vegas.
That's right.
I love it. My mother-in-law still comes down once every 2 weeks and shoots a commercial. Gosh, I forgot the company. It's a furniture company. They've been there forever. They've just been doing commercials for like the last 20 years.
I think I know who you're talking about. Is it like a furniture and electronics store?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Why am I? Is she like a short haired blonde woman?
Yeah.
Yes. What is that? What the hell is that on Woodruff Road, Sawyer? You know what I'm talking about. Corner of Woodruff Road and Roper Mountain. Anyway, we give them some free advertising if
there we go.
I don't know why I'm blanking. At first I want to say Jason's, but it's not Jason's. That's more of a chain. But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's hilarious. Ryan, the other day I pushed out, a little graphic to promote this episode, and a buddy of mine, good friend of mine, she was like, "You're having Ryan on?" She's like, "I did contract work with him last year on a project." I don't know if you remember a girl named Belle. Blonde hair.
Love Belle. Belle.
Yeah.
Know her well. And she texted me when she saw it. She was like, "Yeah, I know those guys." I'm like, awesome. I'm like, well, listen, tune in.
Yeah, man. What a small world.
Yeah.
Yep.
So your story, Ryan, I'm a big fan. It really resonated with me. When I read your story, it reminded me a lot of myself growing up, older sister, humble beginnings, just kind of grinding it and doing my thing in the marketing industry for the last 20 years.
That's it, brother.
Southern boy.
Jeff Lynch was the name of the furniture. I'd have Sawyer look that up. I'm like, that's gonna bother me the whole episode. I'm that kind of guy. Like, so I'm gonna sit here, I'll be in the mode, but I'd be lingering. It's done. I feel better.
You were zoned out. You were just like, who is that? What is that?
That's it.
Yeah. No. Yeah, man.
But would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself, Ryan? Maybe a little bit more on top of what I added in the intro.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm a Carolina kid. I mean, I grew up in South Carolina. I was born at Greenville General Hospital. Yeah, like Greenville's become, kind of the hot city of the South, or one of them.
Very hot.
Both figuratively and literally. It is South Carolina. Sticky. And it's sticky at times. A little cool now, though. It's been a cooler winter. But, man, grew up here to the, it's the first, I had an older sister, and so there's only 2 of us. And, I had 2 parents that were serial entrepreneurs, but also worked for other people, and grew up, humble beginnings. I was, there's not like I don't know, a lot of people grow up and there's like this obvious path to, handing off the company business, or your father was we've 7 generations of lawyers. We have 4 generations of doctors. And, a history of education and success. I mean, look, Alford's had a good name, but it was a good blue collar. Like my grandfather sold a little bit of everything and, was in the manufacturing type stuff, working for other people. But then my dad, growing up had, 6 or 7 different jobs and kind of climbed, with the great American story, like was not a college graduate. He was served in the Air Force, but was always good at a lot of things, adaptive and entrepreneurial. And, I watched my parents, grind while I grew up and, gave us a nice low middle class. I stopped short of, always people ask me, like, what did you grow up? And, I started to say middle class. And I don't know what makes, look, I didn't want for every meal, but I tell you what, when I hear some middle class stories, I'm like, that was not me.
That's not middle class.
It wasn't quite there, so I don't know what the grades are of all that. Let's just say, it was humble beginnings for sure. And
that's
I told the story this weekend with friends. We were talking about cars. I forgot what it was. And people were talking about, what car they grew up or their parents had and all those kind of things. Well, I mean, my mom drove me to school up until like middle school in a 72 Dodge Dart that.
Dude, my dad had that car.
That let's just say it took about 90 seconds to turn off. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So whatever class that puts you in when you're in 5th, 6th grade, that's what class we were in, And so anyway, man, but look, my parents climbed the corporate ladders at different places and did well, considering neither one graduated from college. And I had a good life and played sports and, anything I needed, I had, and everything I wanted, I still wanted, or, got some of as we kind of, went through life and ended up going to Clemson University and was one of the first to graduate in my family from college. My cousin and I kind of debate this because he's a lawyer in Columbia. And I say that, his didn't really count until I think he technically graduated a year ahead of me, but then went to law school. So I was like, I was collecting checks while you were still going to class. So I'm going to.
Oh, nice. Nice.
So, but nonetheless, went to Clemson. And I will say, with all that, some kidding, but a lot of truth. I think it makes me feel better about some of the struggles, like being jovial about it, like, because they weren't life or death struggles, but it was just, watching parents, rub 2 nickels together to make it all happen. I mean, and we were fortunate. We didn't go through a lot of trauma or anything like that, but they helped put me through Clemson. I paid a lot of my way through school. Literally had student loans that I didn't pay off till I was 40 years old, mainly because it was like 1% interest, not because I couldn't afford it, but it was more just if the government wanted to pay the freight, I was going to let them do that.
Yeah.
And, but I will say I was fortunate. I started in marketing day one at Clemson and was a marketing major. I knew sales, marketing, business was my path. I grew up very entrepreneurial driven, always finding different ways to, if I didn't get, I wasn't always given what I want, but I'd go get what I want, so I'd make it happen, whether it was baseball cards or, yard sales. And went to Clemson and marketing major and came out of Clemson. And ironically, I don't know if I've ever told this story. I tell a lot of the same stories go on shows. So this is the first. My high school sweetheart, girlfriend, sweetheart. That makes you South Carolina and old at the same time with one word. My high school sweetheart.
Oh yeah,
we are all in our mid-40s.
Oh, bless her heart.
Bless her heart. Not many people would get that. But we get
yeah,
that.
Exactly. Actually was working in an ad agency. And, I guess it probably says something about my character that my high school girlfriend, who proceeded to dump me the first semester of college, greatest thing that anyone ever did for me, by the way. And she was working at an ad agency when I graduated from Clemson. And they had a position that opened and I applied, and she put in a good word for me. So again, probably says something that your high school girlfriend that, you hadn't been with in 6 years or whatever, referred you. And I got my foot in the door at Irwin Penland at the time. They had about 70 employees. It was still one of the largest, if not the largest ad agency in the state of South Carolina. It's now known as EP014. Gone through a few ownership changes and things like that. And I started as employee 71 as a junior account executive in 2001.
Nice.
So about 3 months before 9/11. And so that was a weird feeling, by the way. 3 months into your job, watching all that go down on the TVs.
Yeah,
It was a strange experience. Luckily to, not have experienced that, because ironically, 8 years into working there, I moved to Manhattan, a block from where that happened. Is where I was living. But yeah, I started as a junior account executive. I worked for 7 or 8 years, promoted 7 times, went from junior account executive to VP director of accounts over an 8-year period. I was not the world's best account person. I was one of the world's best sales, smart, understood the way the business worked, customer service, and like hybrid probably person in the agency. And I was not the micro detail guy, but I understood the macro, the big picture. I understood how the agency made money. I very quickly watched, and I watched a lot of my peers and my bosses there who worked really hard and did a lot of the things by the book. And I was like, but I understood, I watched, I was like, I saw how it all worked. Like I could see it. I was paying attention, like what my boss's boss was doing, what mattered to them. What matters to your boss's boss is what matters when you're in an organization. And so I paid attention to that, because a lot of times we get caught up in what we think matters. And when you work for other people, what you think matters a lot less than what your boss or your owners think matters.
Right.
And so I worked there, and, was blessed to work on some big brands, worked Verizon Wireless, Apple, Motorola, Samsung, Budweiser indirectly. And then, got promoted all these times. And then, EP decided to open a New York office. It strategically made sense with some clients that they had, and one of them being Verizon Wireless. And Verizon came to my boss and said, "We want Ryan in New York."
Wow.
That did 2 things. It scared the shit out of me. It did 3 things. It scared the shit out of me. It didn't make my wife at the time very happy, but it also opened some incredible doors for my career. I'm a risk taker. I was born, there's the risk. If you look up risk adverse, it has a picture of me with an X through it. Like that's what I would say. I just don't really, it's not that I'm not like a jump out of the plane kind of guy, but like, as far as like business risk and those things, I don't worry about like how much money's in my bank account when I'm 82 years old. I worry about what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, that's good.
I think that's the best way to describe me. It's not because I'm irresponsible, but I think so many people plan for situations that are not guaranteed to happen.
That's true.
I operate in how can I both responsibly but irresponsibly make the most of the moment. And so nonetheless, I took the job, but it gave me a lot of leverage. Let's just say when your largest client at your agency says, "We want so-and-so at so-and-so at this date and time," it gives so-and-so a lot of leverage. That would be me.
Absolutely.
And
you're so-and-so.
I'm so-and-so. And so I got to name a lot of things. And, of course I couldn't just go, "Oh, yeah, pay me $1 million." I'm not saying that. But
And what are you like, early 20s, mid 20s at this time?
I'm 27, 28 years old. And so I got to kind of name my number, name my living conditions, and I got to keep my house in South Carolina and got a pretty much all expenses paid living experience in New York for 6 years.
That's impressive.
And so while getting to work with the best and brightest talent in the world in creative on Madison Avenue, while working with Apple, Verizon, Samsung, Motorola, ushering in the smartphone and technology eras, and, had a client that believed in our agency and us and our team, but fundamentally believed in me and leading it and guiding them through, our segment of that piece of business. Verizon Wireless had like 20 agencies, so we weren't the only agency. But, and got to go there. And I mean, I'd already cut my teeth, but I got to live and breathe and experience things that very few 28-year-olds get to do. And, I had scraped, clawed my way to where I was at the agency and given myself that opportunity. But I'm not blind or misguided in thinking some fortunate things transpired, with making all that happen. And so lived in New York for about 5.5 years and took what was a $3 million annual retainer for EP to a $45 million annual retainer. Anybody that works in the agency business that knows if you have a $45 million annual retainer with a client, there's about 5 of those in the country. Now, they just don't exist anymore. That right. Large. And did it through, both. I mean, I think the hybrid abilities of strategy, creative, and account management, because that's where people ask me, "Oh, what were you?" And I have this discussion. I talked to Chris Dew on the Future podcast, and he's like, "Were you an account?" Or it's like a total agency person. What department were you in? And I'm like, I was an account person, but when you lead accounts, you really wear a lot of different hats. I mean, I don't want to pretend that I was sitting in there as the creative director, but you become sort of, the judge, jury, and executioner of what your agency kind of represents for the client when you're at the highest, account level / client level. And so I was in a lot of creative meetings, a lot of strategy meetings, and had a great team, amazing team. I hired really good. I got lucky on some, unlucky on others, but we had a killer team. I mean, it was not just the Ryan Alford show, but we did and worked on the who's who. I mean, the first, iPhone launch with Verizon, the Droid campaign with Motorola. So it's ironic. I helped Apple and kicked their ass all at the same time. And loved every second of it.
Wow.
And so, did that, and it was a great experience. And then, that kind of, it's like, it's both between both life and work. The runway kind of ran out. Right. It was 13 years at one agency. It's almost unheard of. Especially for an entrepreneur person like myself.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody that meets me, once they get to know me, they go, he's a true entrepreneur. I am, and I was, but I worked for other people for 17 years. And so you can do both things. Two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
But EP was very entrepreneurial driven. Like they wanted people like me because they knew if they unleashed people like me, it would grow their bottom line, which it did. And so blessed and fortunate there, the runway ran out. It was time for me to leave New York. I had a wife that getting a divorce, had 2 kids, and was not going to be, a dad living in New York with kids in South Carolina. My wife was moving back. So I moved back to South Carolina and worked for a couple other agencies and startups that crashed and burned, which we can talk about. I'm happy to talk about. And then started, Radical, my ad agency 6 years ago. At the same time, I invested in really 3 things. The Radical being the agency, the foundational business, and, everything that I'd learned and everything I knew. Starting the agency with some core beliefs. The Radcast, and my personal brand. I knew and saw and watching enough, there were enough examples of all this happening, podcast growing, personal branding becoming important. And then of course, just, agency business. And if you put those three things on a chart, time and money / revenue they're almost identical, growth. And all of them feed one another now.
Right.
So I know that was long-winded. I know podcasts aren't always great with one person talking all the time, but I wanted to give some depth to the story.
No, we appreciate it. I have a quick question. So I went to NC State, and I think we're about the same age. I was probably down there at the football games. We were probably there around the same time. But I was listening to one of your recent episodes, and you're talking about now, we have access to everything. You go on YouTube, you can get a tutorial, you can learn anything out there and become anything you want to be. So if you had to do it all over again, would you go back to college, or would you go straight into like entrepreneurship?
It's funny you bring this up. As we talked pre-episode, I just left my oldest son, Clayton, who's in 8th grade. And it was all about, you're making these decisions and choices for classes. And I would spend a second in college. I would literally, I'm kind of a self-learn kind of guy anyway, taught that we didn't have the resources in 2000. The internet had just gotten off the ground. People think, things happen overnight or they're quick to change. It takes time. But, in 2000, you barely could scrape together the internet, and email and all that shit. And so, but I would have, no, I'm not going to, here's what I would say. I would not go to college. I don't know if I would go to work for someone or start my own company.
Yeah.
I probably lean towards now because the entrepreneurial tools and journey are so much clearer than they were like when I came out. But I wouldn't be afraid to work for someone else, but I wouldn't go to college. I think it taught me a lot, interpersonal skills and people skills. I'd have to supplement that with like real life experiences. But again, between masterminds and social get-togethers and things, I think you could piece that together too.
Yeah.
I think 8-9 years ago, I think my answer was different, even though I had a lot of the same beliefs about whether or not college was important or not. But the social side, I wasn't sure about. But I think the last, 8 to 10 years with masterminds and social gatherings and things that are, the offline, online combination, I think you could piece together the social and interpersonal skills. So absolutely not.
Yeah. And every time I chat with like an entrepreneurial that did go to college, I ask that question, because it's so interesting. And the only reason I went to college is because it was kind of told, hey, after high school, that's just what you do. But I really didn't have direction on exactly what I wanted to do. And I remember I was one of those people that, you remember going to the school bookstore and the books cost like $100, $150.
Oh yeah.
You could sell it for like $10.
No one remembers that better than me. You just start guy.
Oh
remember?
Gosh. Yeah.
Like,
that's right.
My mom asking the woman, really? That's really how much they cost? And like, if you remember like Vacation with Chevy Chase, like when he's pulling out the money, we said, how much is that? And he's like, how much you got? And it's like, she's sliding the ones back in her
back in.
It's not enough. Make it enough, boy.
Right. Exactly. But I kept so many of those books, that was 25 years ago. I was in college. I kept those books because I was like, hey, this is business and marketing. This is going to be so helpful down the road. It was like last year, I think I cracked open one of those books. It was so irrelevant, because look at 25 years ago, like you just said, didn't have the internet, didn't have email. It was just getting started. No social media, all this stuff around branding, has just been completely different. So, I'm right in the same boat as you. If I could do it over again, I would not go.
Well, let's just say I didn't start World War III today. By telling with my ex-wife there and my son and the counselor trying to tell me because they have these things on the screen, choose which one, 4-year degree, 2-year degree. And they had a lot of things up there. I give them credit because I thought it was going to be like 3 choices, but it was a lot
doing
of
this in 8th grade,
internship, whatever. It's like just choosing the path. You're not having to like sign it in blood or anything, but it's like, what are you thinking your path's going to be so that we can give you guidance towards what you think you're going to do?
Yeah.
Well, I stopped short of creating World War III by telling my ex-wife that, My son probably won't go to college if this trajectory continues. But he probably won't. Not because I don't want to pay for it. I'll give him $200,000 to just come work with me.
There you go. There you go.
Exactly. But you said like your parents were both entrepreneurial, right?
Yes.
And I mean, maybe comment on that. Did they ever like tell you like, hey Ryan, this is yours if you want it. You can come under my wing and like apprentice and learn and grow? Or did they push you towards college? Where were they at in your journey?
You know, my parents were very uneducated on how, you know, it's funny how it's changed. Like it's back to having that legacy. Like my family didn't have a legacy of knowing what career paths look like. Like, yeah, they wanted me to go to college because that was like the popular thing to do, but they didn't know how to prepare me because they hadn't done it themselves. And to be clear, their entrepreneurial journeys were 3 side hustles on top of their day job working for someone else.
Wow.
Like my dad did end up running and owning a couple of his own companies, but then they kind of crashed and burned. And ultimately he was in sales when I graduated, from high school, working for a company doing as a VP of sales. And so, but while still doing trade shows for silk flower arrangements, my dad was like one of the first people. I say my dad invented them, but I don't think that he really did. They probably were being made in China or somewhere else. But he would get, like silk trees, go get tree limbs that looked really nice and shave them all down and put leaves into them. First to make like artificial trees that go into like restaurants and things like that. So you didn't have to keep up with watering them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And my mom made silk flower arrangements. So they did a lot of trade shows. Both my parents are very artistic and kind of entrepreneurial. I think that's where kind of the creativity and I don't know, the hodgepodge of genetics came in to the madman in front of you now.
Wow. Awesome.
But it was not, to answer the question, it was not like, son, you need to work for yourself or you can come work for me. There wasn't a family business to hand to me.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Makes total sense. Don't know if you were about to say something.
Well, no, I mean, similar, when I graduated high school, I started a couple small businesses and then I worked for a couple small businesses. And it was later that I decided to go and take a 2-year tech degree in Charlotte for graphic design, old school. Yeah. We did typesetting and everything else. And that's kind of how I made my way into the industry. Had a girlfriend at the time. She was like, hey, sweetheart. Bless her heart. She was like, you want to move to Charlotte with me? I want to go be a paralegal. I was like, sure, let's go. What else do they offer? Well, they offer this and this and this. I'm like, I always loved art. I love drawing, working with my hands. Loved art class. Barely passed all my classes, but anyway, went and fell in love with it, dude. It's like I just opened the door. Got my 2-year tech degree. I went and interviewed with 10 or 20 other students. Got hired at an entity and then became owner within about 1.5 years. I just gravitated towards it. I'm a people person, and I think what you were saying about having a hodgepodge of skills, it's like account rep, designer, creative, just kind of fell in my nature, and everybody loved my accent,
That's accent served me well in New York. It served me well. I could have looked at it as a weakness because, I walk into rooms with all these New York people and clients and, they'd hear me like say one sentence and they'd go, oh, we got nothing to worry about with this guy. As far as like their work. And then by the time the meeting's over, the client's eating out of my hand because they just want to hear me talk about something because my accent's so unique. And he actually knows what he's talking about too. Damn.
Right.
It was a dangerous combination. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
So Ryan, you said, was it 6 years ago you started your ad agency and then, the podcast came from that, the Radcast. So like behind you, you can see some of the guests you've had. I mean, big names, Grant Cardone, Bruce Buffer back there. I mean, how's that for an intro if you got him to even do an intro for himself? But I mean,
Did y'all hear that? If you listen to his episode, he did me an
no, I didn't.
Oh yeah.
Amazing.
I've got that. I had it as the intro to the, and I probably should bring it back as the intro for the Radcast, because he did a whole, Radcast intro, personal intro.
Amazing.
Yeah, unasked for. It was crazy.
Oh, that's all. I'm going to check that out right after we tune out today. But, what were I think it was a natural transgression for you spending so much time in the ad agency that you worked for to start your own thing. I mean, you had all the experience that just makes sense. But with a podcast, over the past decade or so, I mean, these have taken off, and a lot of people, are starting with a story to tell. I mean, what was it that prompted you to start it, and kind of what was your goal with it? How did it fit in with agency versus a podcast versus your personal brand and all of it?
Yeah, man. I saw the podcast thing. I don't know if I think I'm innovative, but I'm not necessarily like first to market guy. I'm not like, the first to try it. Like I don't want to pretend like I'm like that guy. But I am the guy that pays attention to kind of moving trends and innovations. And when things hit my radar, I take a second to digest them and go, does that make sense to me?
Yeah.
Does that and that goes with everything. My wife would say I read, 1 million reviews, which I do. But it's like, so I need both validation, but also just my instincts. Podcasting made a ton of sense to me. I grew up, in an era with radio, and you had radio personalities and things like that. And so in a digital world, and the technology and what smartphones allow with the, transmission of those and the distribution, podcasting made a ton of sense to me. Because again, it's both active and passive. It's become video like we're doing now, but the audio form of being able to do it while you multitask, from cutting grass to going to the gym, right, to driving in the car, whatever, you're passing a certain time, but you have active attention. You can pay attention to multiple things. So that made a ton of sense to me as a medium. So when I was doing one of my startups that was in the car business that crashed and burned, lost about $1 million. We can get down that road later if you want. Like, I'll get Cameron to get the tissue box. But I did a car podcast, a car show, and this is like
was that how you started?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was I Drive On Demand was the name of the business. We were Carvana before Carvana. I had the right idea, the wrong implementation. And so I started the car show. I did it for like 8 months. It didn't have any kind of audience. It didn't have any of the popularity that Radcast did, but I knew that, kind of cut my teeth there, did some radio talk show stuff. So I kind of cut my teeth a little bit, saw it as a medium. And then, so when I started the agency, I was in my mind, I was a chief marketing officer at another agency for about 18 months. It was clear the CEO and I did not see eye to eye. It was time for me to do my own thing, but I knew I was going to start the podcast. And so started the agency, named it Radical. And literally day 2, was recording episode 1. So, I mean, they started almost identically at the same time. And I just saw and believed in the medium. And it was a few different things. I knew that the medium was becoming more popular, so that there was opportunity to build audience. Mm-hmm. I wanted a way to stay sharp and to learn in the industry. And there's nothing that keeps you sharper than talking about it, right? Yeah. Like talking about trends, talking about information, having to research things.
Yeah.
And so it created a discipline for me. Like in some ways you could set your clock by me, but in some ways I'm not like, the most micro disciplined person in the world. So I wanted to create something that created discipline for learning and then meeting people. I knew having guests on the show that was kind of the thing, still is the thing, like this. And so building relationships, staying sharp on knowledge in the industry, and then building audience and building recognition. Because there was one thing that I was the most, if I got a lot of things right, we can build, if we can fill one episode with that, we can fill 4 with everything I got wrong.
Yeah, right.
I came out of doing all these things. I had a great story, like South Carolina kid goes to New York, kicks ass, makes a lot of money, grows a lot of brands, but no one knew who the hell I was. No one. I was Ghostland, like I had 300 followers on Facebook or Instagram and no followers on LinkedIn. Like I'd done all this stuff and I was mad because like that was a trend that I saw kind of happening, but everything was going so good. It's just like, I'll get to that. Who cares? And so, but it was crystal clear to me that, the more people that knew me, the more opportunities that I would get. So, I trademark, it'll be final soon. It pays to be known, that word, that phrase. And so I knew that. And so I knew if I could elevate my own personal brand, the Radcast would help. And then starting the agency, I knew that there was an interplay of those three things because the podcast would generate leads, both directly and indirectly, which we can talk about. It would elevate my personal brand as it got more popular. And it would give me a medium with which to create content. I'm not ever going to be and never have been, and even to this day, guy follow me around with a camera guy. I don't want to, it's less about privacy, but more about like, someone to think about like what I'm doing at all, and that's sort of gone away. I mean, Gary V kind of did that stuff and no one's really necessarily doing that anymore. I think we're getting more of the highlights, which is good. The meaty stuff than just I'm in the cab, man. It's been a busy day. I'm having my coffee. Right. I'm going to work on some reports right now. I'll see you in a little while. I mean, who cares? And I was never going to be that guy, but the podcast allows for, you're creating content just like we're doing right now. Yeah. And so exactly. I knew and understood, again, that's just back to like, I knew and understood like the medium enough. I was like, okay, I get it. I can make relationships. I can stay sharp. I can create an avenue with which naturally creates content that I can use to fill up social media and other things. And I mean, that's what podcasting does. If you do it right and you're thoughtful about it, even if you don't have the most popular show in the world. And I didn't, I mean, I tell this joke a lot. I'm going to tell it on this one. If you listen to every show, you've heard it. For the first 10 months, I had 50 listeners, 49 were my mom. So it wasn't about popularity, but it was still allowing me to create content. And even if it wasn't the greatest content, it was content and allowed me to start to, have something to put out there with my personal brands and things like that. And don't get me wrong. I have some of the people behind me include Christopher Lockhead, one of my favorite people in marketing. People cringe with the personal brand name. I get it. I understand. People call it whatever you want. I mean, we're all building personal brand whether you like the name or not. That's and right. You can call it whatever you want, building reputation. Yeah. Same thing. So you can either amplify that or not amplify that. And I didn't amplify that when I was in the pinnacle of things that I had done in the business. And I regret that. Or you can now do it. And the more people that know how you feel, what you know, and what you have to add value with or for, the more opportunities you will have. And so that's undebatable. I'll debate with you all day if there's personal brand content that sucks, or if people sitting in front of the Lambo only and just all that that's so, either fake or disingenuous or just sleazy or whatever you want to call it. We can have that debate. But you can't debate with me that the more people that know your skill sets, that know your beliefs, the more opportunities you will have, because someone will relate to you. Someone will want to hire you. Someone will want to listen to you. And all of that brings monetization and career opportunities. And so that's undebatable. And so I've long-winded answered your question, but I saw podcasting as just the facilitator of all of those things.
I like it. It reminds me, I was listening to one of your podcasts. You were talking about 3 marketing kind of objectives in 2024.
Yep.
The integrated influencer, the creativity, right?
Yep.
In the community /
audience, which are huge. Not really rocket science, but I think, a lot of businesses, people probably listen to our cast are just businesses, entrepreneurs, friends and family.
Well, I don't know. I was going to ask because, I mean, you mentioned like in those 10 months, you have 50 views and 49 of your mom. Like when we started off, I mean, it's like employees and family members and all that are watching it. But I started tracking like our YouTube analytics and the comments, like how haters, came on so fast. It's like, how do we already have haters? We don't even have a following, man.
Yeah. You're doing good then. That means you
exactly.
made it. I always say if you get haters, you made it. So,
hey, man. Right. But I mean, did you have along that journey, did you start having, haters, that were starting to comment on it, or where did you start gaining traction and positive versus the negative feedback that you got?
Yeah. I'm really good about tuning. I'm either really dumb and blind or really good at, I think I'm just good at tuning it out. Like, I think I felt the hate more in the judgment, like amongst like industry friends and things like, with the personal brand and podcast stuff that was like, not because they thought it sucked, but they were just like, I think when you have like a certain amount of success, and let's just face it, like, I don't know, some things, your own skills bring on, and then some things just by luck, goodwill, good fortune, I think you can get judged and assumed. And like, look, I'm a big dude. I'm 6'5", 250 pounds. I'm a big dude. I have a big personality. And so like, I get thrown in the arrogant camp already, before anyone knows me.
Yeah.
And so then, are you kidding me? Perceived arrogant big guy that's mid-successful, going to start a personal brand, a podcast. There's just, it seems just self-serving and self-grandizing, like not totally purposeful, maybe. It's just another way to pat myself on the back.
Right.
And I just kind of tuned all that out because I know that just kind of comes with it to this day. And, I just knew that repetition brings expertise. And look, the show got better. I got better. I listened to the show. Like, no one probably listens to the show, not necessarily now, but definitely those first few years than me. I listen to shows over and over and over again. I digest, like, is that interesting? Do I sound like, not because I was like being critical, but just trying to learn. Mm-hmm. And so if you go listen, like one of the first, I don't know, 100 episodes versus one, I would dare you to try to even tell me there's it's even in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
I mean, and so learning how to ask the right questions, trying to make sure I bring energy and emotion. And like, I think I started the podcast thinking, I could be, just myself. And, believe it or not, and I say this a lot, I don't know if people believe it, but it's true. I mean, I'm a extroverted introvert. Mm-hmm. And so my natural kind of, would just be, hey, guys, it's been a cool day, man. It's Monday, it's great. But that doesn't bring, interest if you're listening, so I dialed it up. And not to be fake, but I'm a very passionate and energetic person on the inside. I have natural drives that bring that I don't have to display because I don't really give a shit what anyone else thinks. But look, if someone's going to turn the dial and listen to me, I need to bring it. I need to bring energy. I need to make them feel like I care about it. And so I took a lot of those learnings, and also I woke up like, I don't know, 18 months into it and was like, I wasn't trying to monetize immediately. I was doing it for the reasons that I said. You notice I didn't even say make money, right?
Yeah.
When you asked me. And so, but I was like, okay, why am I playing small? I'm inviting like my friend's buddy, and this guy and this girl, like, and that's fine. It wasn't that because I wanted to make them feel good. I wanted, I was like, this is cool. I was like, I've done some really big things. I know a lot of people, Like, why am I not going big?
Yeah, it's good.
And so I went big. I went from 1 episode a week to 2 episodes a week. I started inviting the Mark Randolphs of the world, founder of Netflix, and just sending out 100 DMs to, whoever, the highest people. And, I had the ABC list. If you spend all your time going after A-listers, you ain't gonna be able to fill up a show, or show schedule, because for every 100, you might get 4. And so you got to have your list, but, started just going big and acting big, and not acting big probably sounds wrong, but like making the show as big as what I wanted it to be, and not necessarily as big as it was to that day.
Mm.
That's the unlock. And that's the unlock for everything. And let me be clear. It's not fake it till you make it. That's not what I said. But if you don't act, speak, and reflect what you want to be, you will never be that. And so
that's good.
Like, it's time to unlock that. And I haven't looked back since. And, magically, I'm not a big manifest guy necessarily. My wife hates that term. She's like, thinks it's, voodoo. And it is, but I've gotten a little more spiritual, a little more, like thoughtful about these things. I used to just be roll forward, like, I'm going to mow it down. I'm going to make it happen.
Great job, Ryan. Way to grow.
I think I'm growing. I'm like, okay, I want to manifest this, or whatever. Not really. I never said that word, but I did say, I knew I had to reflect. If I want anyone else to believe it, I got to believe it. I want anyone else to, and look, I had done a lot of things. I was so blessed and so fortunate to have experienced what I had done. It was time to stop being shy about that and like to really own that and, go for it. And so, the podcast is raised. And now we're consistent. If you look at the rankings are weird. Any given day we might be 2 or 3, but if you look at the last 6 months, we're number 1 in marketing and business. The average rating.
6 years ago, did you think that would ever be possible? Was that even on your radar?
I did say the goal was to become the number 1 marketing show in the US.
So you could say you manifested that?
Here's what I'll say. I'll say that Sawyer and Cameron and a lot of people before them and myself worked our asses off to make it happen.
Yeah,
and
I like it.
We're very disciplined. And because look, I've done 2 shows for 5+ years every week. It's a story. Like, no excuses. It doesn't matter if we repurposed an episode here or there, whatever. No questions asked, 2 episodes every week, and have been consistent with it. And so, we got better. The guests got better. The ratings get better. And now, the goal is number 1 in business. Damn Dave Ramsey and people wanting to get out of financial debt is going to make it real hard to get there. Everybody seems to be in debt. This show is always number 1, but we hit number 7 over the holidays in all of business.
Congrats.
Pretty much unheard. Only probably there's 2 shows in marketing that are in the top 100 in business. And we were one of them. And we were number 7. We stay in the top 25 now of all of business. And we're consistently in the top 150 of all podcasts in the world on Apple. And
that's awesome.
I know how it happened, but I don't know how it happened. I'm humble enough to know that, what they say, the marketers, CEOs or CMOs always say, if I knew which 50% of my marketing didn't work, I'd stop doing it.
Yeah, right.
They just don't know.
Exactly.
I know the formula, and, we do know the formula. There's a formula to it, but sometimes it just gets a little messy with knowing every piece of it. So I stopped worrying about that. Here's what I say. The better content, if I can put out the best content with the best guests, with the most interest, then everything else will come along. And it has. And if you start worrying too much about that, the rankings, and they matter, don't get me wrong. You'll see me post about it. I'm like, I'm a little Ricky Bobby. If you ain't first, you last.
Yeah.
So, but
Shake
at the
and
same
bake,
time,
baby.
it doesn't I'm not thinking about it every day like I used to. Because I'm thinking every day, how do we make the show better?
Yeah.
And I think if you think about that, then everything else comes with it.
That's good. Like you said, monetization was never kind of your goal with it as you're getting it started. And, it's all about producing that content and getting better and how you can learn, bringing guests on to provide value to your audience. So with that, when you started getting into sponsorships of the podcast, did sponsors reach out to you, or did you feel that you were at a spot based on, where you had grown it to where you started reaching out, or a combination of both?
I'll say this: never wait for it to come to you. That is if I write a book one day and I've written half of 7 books, there will be a book. I got a couple of them. That would be in the playbook. Never, if you wait for it to come to you, you'll never get it. And so,
Good.
I did not wait. I started, back to the playbook of going big and doing all that. I started piecing together all our stats and data and my personal brand. And so even to this day, I get a lot of, look, we get 100 people a month that want to work with me, but none of them want to pay anything. So they all wanted, so not none of them, not 90% of them don't. And so, but we do a lot of our own outreach now and then, and we have the data to prove it. And so the brands that are smart enough, that are playing the right game for the medium, we're working with. But yeah, you got to go ask for the order and put it out there.
Do you remember the first sponsor you ever got?
Oh, trying to think of the first one that actually wrote a check. We had a couple. Actually, I do know. I'm surrounded by them. I'm almost embarrassed. I can actually hold them up. Our merchandise sponsor, Branded Bills, who does all our merch and hats, sweatshirts. They were the first brand, 4 years ago, and they paid and we did a trade and pay. And so, and still work with them to this day, and actually talking with their owner about a new deal for this year. So yeah, Branded Bills.
Nice.
Going back to the marketing piece, to the 3 objectives you were talking about, the integrative influencer.
Yeah.
The creativity really struck me. The influencer did as well. Yeah, I see it. I'm like, man, I love how you kind of angled that. You really got to grab them and utilize them to the extent of your outlets. Bring them on a podcast, take them to a show, do a series with them, engage with them more.
People, that's the unlock with those. People are like, yeah, influencer marketing is big in 2024. No, I mean, of course it is, but it's doing it integrated. It's leveraging it from top to bottom and using all their mediums is how you truly unlock the value. Having them post 3 times about your product is not gonna, I don't care who they are, is not gonna get 9 out of 10 times is not gonna be ROI positive. But if they post for you, they write your newsletter, they have a blog post on your site, their name, image, and likeness is somewhere else, they show up for shows, they do product demonstrations, integrate them into the brand, you will get ROI, because people buy from people and not brands, period. In the story.
That's right.
I love it.
And I mean, marketing 101, this goes back decades, it's the human element, it's the human interaction. And I think so much, our digital, what's happened over the past couple of decades, and now with AI and technology, people have taken the human element out. And so essentially we're going back to something that worked. We just have different platforms to where influencers are now on Instagram and TikTok and leveraging these different vehicles, but it's the same stuff we've been doing for decades.
Spokesperson,
brand
Michael
ambassadors.
Jordan, just do it. I mean, it's
and I feel like that, along with your bullet too, creativity, our market in the marketing world, agency world, it's been saturated, right? It's very noisy. And everybody is trained. They just need to market. No brand strategy, nothing. Just market. Get the sales. Blah blah blah. Hit them. And I think what it's sucked the creativity out of our industry. We don't have the time. And companies and businesses, it's hard for them to understand the brand value, the ROI for something that's going to take 2 to 5 years of growth versus marketing for that quarter, right? They're just like hey, we need to make money. We need to make money. We need to make sales. So that's kind of been sucked out. So I appreciate you kind of bringing that to your show, because I think that's something companies in general and brands need to relearn. They need to go back and say, we need to allow to give others creative, freedom, and do more creative projects, spend more on creative projects, right? It's fascinating.
Number 2 and number 3 are they're, number 1 was, very tactical and I didn't believe it. But number 2 and number 3 are very related. And number 3 is long game, short termism. And it's very related to number 2, creativity. And I would add, it's 2 words, creativity and experimentation. And so in a world that's been dominated the last 10 years by performance marketing, and I hate for performance marketing, I'd like to punch whoever started that right in the face. And let's go. Don't get me wrong. It's not because, look, I believe in outcomes. I'm an outcome guy.
Absolutely.
And you got to drive sales. But there's a reason there's marketing, there's a reason there's sales, and they're 2 different departments.
Yes.
Because what drives a sale in a micro moment, when you can get to the bottom of the funnel with Sally Homemaker that needs paper towels right this second, and you can hit them on Facebook while they're in the store, great, wonderful. Performance marketing, wonderful. That could be a sub-segment of marketing. But what builds top of mind awareness for the long term, so that when your brand is in their mind and they don't know why it's there, because you didn't hit them over the head with a baseball bat while they were being interrupted on Facebook, is a lost art, and it still matters. And we're going to be back to the future, because with cookies going away and some of the other stuff with privacy happening, the cream will rise to the top with ideation and experimentation in the next 5 years. AI can write up all the performance marketing you can think of.
Right.
But creativity and experimentation for brands and big ideas will become more and more valuable and more important.
So true. I think so many people don't understand really the difference between branding and marketing. They kind of just throw them in that same direction. And, it's like, I think you brought up in one of your episodes, the Duke's Mayo Bowl, and how impressed you were by the brand, to where in the past, there could be a sponsor of a bowl game or any event. But I mean, the way you spoke about it was basically every component of that whole game for 3 to 4 hours. They're intentional with every aspect of that, to where people are thinking about it. And the branding play was just brilliant by what they did there.
100%. I loved it. And it was a 4-hour infomercial without feeling like an infomercial.
Exactly.
And they weren't scared. They're not scared. And the mayo bath thing is not new. I think they've done that for a couple of years, but you lean into it. Mayonnaise is weird. It's fueled a little bit. It's kind of strange. I grew up in the South. A little BLT sandwich with some Dukes on it. You kidding me? I'd run our house naked 5 times for that sandwich. But you know what? But let's be honest. But they lean into it. A mayonnaise bath is like the grossest thing ever, but it's funny. You want to watch it. What happens? How long? He even said it it was stuck in his ear for 4 months. But they leaned into it. They were willing to have fun. Then they did the Krispy Kreme donuts with the spicy honey mustard sauce. And he's sitting there. When do announcers ever eat during the game? But they allowed them to do that. They leaned into it. The guy on the sideline, half the time he was talking, he had product in his mouth, chewing it. And instead of being bothered by it, I was just sitting there going,
brilliant. Well done.
This is well done. And I don't know how many ultimately, that week, how many more Duke sandwiches they sold or mayonnaise. But you know what? I bought a damn case of mayonnaise, and I don't even know why the other day.
That's why. See, but that's brilliant. I mean, you think of, like, so often we think about the coolest brands, like Apple and Oura Ring and all these things, clean, sleek, every aspect of it. This is mayonnaise we're talking about. And now, I mean, it is creating like a movement, based on how they're engaging and how they're leveraging it. And to where, they don't expect you to break away from the game right then and buy mayonnaise, even though it sounds like that's what you did. But I mean, to where the next time that comes up, you're going to remember Duke's versus Hellman's or whatever mayo brands are out there, and you're going to go buy it because of that subconscious programming that happened through very good branding.
Yes. And, that their tagline or their line is tangy. Like that's what it is. Like that's kind of their brand, like Tangy's kind of brings to mind, a lot of different things, but they leaned into it. And I don't know, I was joking a little about the Costco thing, but I did order a sandwich the other day. It was after the game, and 100% I was like, well, what kind of mayos? I asked them what kind of mayos on there, because it's probably more. I'm a marketer, so I just appreciate it. I was like, I wanted to make sure it was Duke's.
Duke it up, baby. Duke it up.
Yeah,
Tangy. I like that. I think that might be your next sponsor for the Radcast, Ryan.
Hey, they're local too. I mean,
Are they?
Yeah, well, they have a corporate headquarters somewhere around here. So I need to get in on that. I think they do everything in house.
Interesting. That's amazing. But, hey, I know we're coming up close to the end of time. Where from where you are today, Ryan? I mean, what's next for you? Where do you want to go?
We're blowing out our podcast network. So the Radcast Media Network, we've trademarked the Radcast, and we're actually going to be helping shows, like I say, turning shows into businesses, and building a media network. We've added 5 or 6 shows the last month, and so this year is going to be about blowing up the bigger network and having shows across the gamut underneath that, which we're going to help take them both their audience higher, but more importantly, monetization, teaching them and the strategies and techniques that we've done for monetizing the show indirectly and directly. And look, the high tide raises all ships. The bigger the media network is, the more shows that are on it, the better it is. We're going to do what no one else has done. There's 1 million people that either self-produce or companies that produce podcasts. There's companies that get guests. There's companies that do all these things. We're integrating it all into one around the whole premise of business growth and monetization. Because ultimately, if you aren't doing that, it's just a hobby. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
It's going to tell you it's just a hobby if you ain't building business from it. And so
expensive hobby.
Yes. And it's not. And again, we still believe in the long game and the brand play, and we believe everything that we're saying. But you still got to have a plan and a path. And we've spent 5 years building it for ourselves. And a lot of people, I joke sometimes, I'll give the example. Your agency guys, you'll get this one. Nothing makes me cringe more than the social media agency whose founder and company pages have 3 followers and 1 post ever.
Oh, man.
Well, who has more credibility than us in having the media network?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And so we got the number 1 show. Sorry. You ain't first, you last.
Right. And that's not being arrogant. You're just speaking
that
truth.
was just a fact. And so we've built the credibility to go ask for that order. Yeah. So we want to build that out. And then, Radical, we're a boutique agency. We've been blessed. I managed 100 plus people in New York. I don't want to do that again. I mean, we could probably be 50 or 60 people at this point, but we got around 20 people. And, we get 2 clients in the door, 1 out the door, 4 in, 2 out. Just because of the nature of it, we have a very little turnover with clients. We're blessed in that regard, but we stay boutique, and so we bring on brands that make sense for us that we think we can help. And so
how do you feel about I read your website? It was freaking awesome. The whole B2B, B2C thing, your H2H. I loved it. About niching, about agencies really niching down and targeting a certain industry or service. It didn't look like that you've kind of went that direction.
I'm not that guy. I'm not the niche guy. I'm the now guy. It's not about niche, it's about now.
Gotcha.
And ironically, my show's actually going to change titles with the media network coming on. I don't want to have a show that's the Radcast, and we got the Radcast Media Network. I don't want to feel like they're an underling. And I didn't want to go the full Ryan Alford podcast. So it's actually called Right About Now. And so, and it's going to be at least 3 days a week. I need to just keep saying 5 because I'm manifesting. It's probably going to be daily. At least 3. We're going to go. It's going to be more and a little change. But look, all that, the keyword is now. And we're a full service now agency. And I believe in, you got to help B2B or B2C, but you got to do it through what works today. And you need to be proficient in what works today. We are not a PR agency. We're not a sports marketing agency. We're a now agency. We're good at, we do PR. We know what needs to be done to help medium businesses to advance. Social media, video, content, podcasting, the now stuff that can help build brand and drive demand.
I like that.
Yeah. Build brand and drive demand.
Right about now. That's good, man.
Right. Yeah. So double entendre there, purposeful.
Amazing.
Now and right are bold.
There you go. There you go.
And I don't mean political necessarily. You can listen to me enough, you probably know where I fall, but I don't wear that sword.
I listened to that episode as well. I definitely feel you on that.
I don't think you have to cut anybody's head off to share your beliefs. And if you listen to my show, like, where I probably fall, but I don't have to berate the other side. My show's not about that. And I don't think you have to do that in general.
Yeah, agreed.
Breaks down communication. So your co-working space, is that where the social house, correct?
Yep. That's where we're at right now.
That's where you operate out of.
Yeah.
I take it. That's awesome. That's awesome. 5,000 square feet. Look freaking phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Anybody that comes to G Vegas, come give us a shout. You can work out of here. Day passes, lounge. We got, 7 big screen TVs, 200-inch HD projector. Tonight, national championship game, Michigan.
That's
and
right.
No better place to be than here.
Who you got in that game? You got Michigan or you got Washington?
Everything in my body told me, like, why wouldn't Michigan crush this team? Which makes me think maybe Washington's going to win.
I think the Wolverines are up 5.5. That's the spread.
I know, but it's like the fact that that's not 11 makes me think Washington might win. Like Vegas doesn't like to lose money because everything in my soul told me that was going to be a 24-10, 27-17, 20. Michigan winning, controlling the game, sacking Penix 50 times, getting a couple interceptions, and just ground and pound. And maybe that's how it turns out. But if it's going to be, 55 was the over under, which is high. Like if there's 55 total points, Washington wins. That was what it told me.
It's going to be fun.
I don't know. Nothing would surprise me. It was just, that was my theory. Because when I first saw it, I was like, this game's going to suck. Michigan's just going to pound them. They don't have the defense to stand up to it. And maybe they won't, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. Be fun.
Yeah, totally. I think I'm pulling for Washington just because, Michigan been there so many times over the years, always in the spotlight. So we'll see.
We will see.
Well, awesome, man. Awesome. Well, dude, we appreciate the time today that you spent with us, man. This has been awesome.
Of course, man. Anytime. Let's do it again.
Yeah, we support you. And, this is a mobile studio. And so gets pulled behind the truck. So we need to come into G Vegas.
Yeah,
bring
man.
it there.
Roll check out in here.
Check out your crib there. Bell was saying your studio is nice, man. So we appreciate the time, man. Love what you're doing out there. Keep on grinding, man. And we're going to keep promoting people your way.
Love your brand, bro.
I appreciate that. Yeah, man. Thank you so much. And, Instagram is the best place to find me. I answer almost every DM, even though I get too many of them. And I only don't answer you if you just write something stupid. But at Ryan Alford on all the platforms.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, we'll put that in the show notes and, drive people your way. But appreciate it, man. And we'll do it again for sure.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Peace.
Thanks for listening and joining us on the Love Your Brand podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode, and remember, share the love.